Our sponsor this month is Published, an affiliate of Village Voices. Published offers all author services from writing tips, critiques, manuscript evaluations, and editing, as well as tips to help you become published. If you prefer to self-publish, purchase the step-by-step book on publishing through Amazon, or purchase services a la carte, from formatting to creating custom covers, or even tips to gather endorsements. The staff is headed by 2 professional writers. After your books are published, either trade paper, electronically, or both, purchase marketing tips, web services, book trailers, or turn your book into an audiobook. Publish provides all your writing, publishing, and marketing needs. So give them a call at 941-748-6865. Contact them online at dgould497@aol.com, or go to the website at www.publishedavillagevoices.webs.com. Good afternoon. Welcome to Culture Coast. The intro you just heard was composed and played by Al Musitano. Today we are continuing the interview with Jeanne Corcoran, the Sarasota County Film and Entertainment Commissioner. We left off last week talking about the TV pitch contest, and this week we will continue discussing where it may possibly lead. With that, let's pick up where we left off. All right, when does it start, or is it already started?
It hasn't started yet because we are trying to find just the right combination of elements. We've been talking to pitch festivals, in particular, the Atlanta Pitch Fest and a couple of pitch fests that are out in Los Angeles, one that's up in New York. And we've had a funny kind of success with TV Me. When we started it in 2010, nobody was doing a pitch contest. There just were none, which is why we started it. Nobody was doing it. Everybody was doing screenplay competitions and teleplay competitions and novel competitions, but nobody was doing a pitch contest like ours. So we created from scratch this interesting little thing, and suddenly there was a lot of activity. We were getting hundreds of entries from around the country. People loved the idea of being able to do something simple like a 5 to a 15-page pitch as opposed to a 130-page screenplay. And we had a great time with it, and we took our winners 3 years in a row to meet with producers and meet with networks and cable outlets and programming executives and so forth. So it was doing very well, and it did so well, it got a certain amount of attention, a lot of press and publicity, and suddenly pitch contests, not festivals, but pitch contests started popping up all over.
I saw one recently online.
And suddenly there are probably 30 pitch contests around the country, and most of them have more money than us and more prizes than us, and they're bigger than us, and they're from bigger areas than we are. And all of a sudden, we are hoist on our own petard, as the saying goes, because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and a lot of times those that imitate something that succeeds, they do it on a bigger, grander scale. So we said, well, we certainly are not going to get into a spitting contest trying to compete with places like New York City.
Not bigger prizes or anything.
They have much more money. They have great big sponsors. They have things we've never had. and bravo for them. I'm glad they could do that for people that want to be in a pitch contest. But that means we have to rethink, how do we do something? How do we innovate again? We innovated once, everybody copied us, and now it's time for us to innovate again and come up with our own method of doing something special. So we're discussing a few different approaches to take TV Me and grow it into something new and fresh. Now, and if I can't, I'm not going to continue it, because there's no point in... I want people to have
being
a
small fish in a big pond.
Right. And I want people who participate to have a real opportunity to do something new and exciting and beneficial.
And that's what I was just
them.
going to get to with you. The 3 winners, did any of them go on to actually have their show picked up and expanded?
Well, they have all gone on in other ways to continue to pursue their craft, but in all 3 situations, they were completely different types of content. The first year, Austin McKinley, who is just a brilliant young guy.
He took every category,
He took quite a few. He put in 9 entries, and he won an award in 5 different categories. It was hilarious, but because they're all judged blind, and everything is stripped of any identification, and they all go out to different judges. And we had judges in New York, we had judges in LA, we had judges in Florida. We had a judge in Chicago.
Obviously, he's a great writer.
He's a great writer, because everything went in all these different directions to all these different judges, and still his talent shone through to where he won first place. He won the grand prize overall. He won first place in, I think, comedy. He won second place in something else, reality, and then he won something else in animation. I mean, he just has multi-talents. So anyway, long story short, we took him out to Los Angeles. He had some great meetings. And they didn't siphon him away. They didn't spirit him away to move to LA, although there was some dialogue about it. And he is today, as we speak, still creating his own content. He's doing his original work. He's doing short films and doing very well at it. So did he go run away to California and get a job out there? No. I think he could have had he chose to, but it helped move him forward in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
And the most importantly, what we've always told people about TV Me is it's all about relationships. And all we can do is help open a door of opportunity. And then it's up to the writer or the creator, it's up to them to step through that door, to mobilize their forces, and to pursue whatever avenue appeals to them the most. But we can create a lot of opportunities for new relationships. So our second year winner was a writing team of 3 different people, and they had done a reality program that was very cool. It was very intelligent. It was very interesting. It was fresh and new. It was called Bestseller, America's Next Great Novel. And it was going to be a game show. It was going to be a competition show along the lines of Project Runway.
I just heard that somebody, I think it's in Italy, it might be England, but somebody in
Italy
they just are putting that on the air.
Right.
So it started a whole dialogue about, would these be great shows for writers? And I just put it in my last newsletter.
That's funny. And I've actually been emailing back and forth just within the last couple of weeks with 2012's TV Me winners about their concept, because of the 3 writers, we took all 3 of them out to Los Angeles, and they had some great meetings, and a lot of it was very exciting. And what happened there was they got great advice. There were a couple of meetings in particular that were really interested in what they had to do. One of them was Fox Television Studios, and they said, as did several other organizations, because this is literary based, it's based on novels, it's based on writers of novels, it needs to be in New York. This needs to be a New York project. It needs to have New York publishers on deck with it. It needs to have New York literary agents working with it to bring in their writers to mentor the contestants. And it all had that New York state of mind, you know.
Right.
So we helped them, and they helped themselves, to give them, a lot of credit. They reached out to a couple of New York agents. They were talking to one in particular that was a pretty powerful agent. She was away in Europe somewhere, and it didn't necessarily languish, but I think the 3 writers, because they were all very dynamic, talented people, they each had other fish to fry. They had other things they wanted to do and directions they wanted to go. One of them moved to LA, and she's working out in Los Angeles, and she's very happy out there. And then another one, she has written her own full-length screenplay, and she, with some of the renewed connections to Los Angeles, she's in the process of getting the funding to make an independent feature film, full-length feature film. And we've been kind of talking about that as well. And then the third writer, he actually has his own video production company. So all three of them are still
in the business,
active in business and busy in the business, but they're each going in their own kind of separate ways. So when this Italian thing came up, we started emailing back and forth, and I told them that I'll be going this coming weekend, as a matter of fact, I'll be going to Washington, D.C. again to participate in the Real Screen Summit, which is all about reality television. It's entirely about reality television. And I'll be there starting this weekend through Wednesday, and I have meetings with a number of executives and so on that specialize in reality television. And when I get there, I'm going to tell them about our incentive program and what they can rebate and what they can recoup if they shoot here and if they bring their work here and all the different advantages to shooting in Sarasota County. So I'll be up there trying to farm the soil of reality television to get them to grow their crops down here.
Sounds like fun.
And I spoke to our writers from 2012 and said, if you've got a little demo product, if you could put together a little video clip or something about your concept again, I'm happy to pass it along.
Especially since one of them is a video producer, that he can do that. That would be the best way to go, because they're so visual.
Right.
Those people are so visual. They want to see what the product's going to look like.
Right. And I've also learned I've had a lot more insight into reality television over the last year or so since I've been going to these summits and actually sitting down and talking at length with reality television producers and executives. And there are common threads of content that have to exist for any show to be picked up, whether it's Duck Dynasty or whether it's Project Runway or whether it's Gator Boys or whether it's Honey Boo Boo, whatever it happens to be for reality television, or if it's a more, I don't want to say high IQ reality television, but let's say it's a higher concept like Survivor or The Amazing Race. Whatever those concepts
they all have the same.
They all have certain qualities that are required, and we call them the 4 C's in reality television, and that is character. They're all character driven. The people are what drives it. If the people are not interesting, if the people aren't compelling, if the people aren't funny or aggravating or silly or sexy or if the people don't have...
The character has to have life.
Right, the character has to drive the interest of the viewer. Because if the person isn't interesting enough, the people are not going to tune in to see it. And it doesn't matter whether they're shooting ducks or whether they're racing around the world for the Amazing Race or whether they're out on an island in a G-string and a bikini top for Survivor. If the people are not compelling, the viewers are not going to watch. So character's number one. And then the second thing it has to have is conflict. And that doesn't mean screaming and yelling and fist fighting. It means obstacles to overcome and challenges to overcome and deadlines to overcome and things that get in their way and things that slow them down and things that confuse them and things that they argue about and things that they pull in different directions about. It has to have conflict. The third thing it has to have is it's got to have comedy. Even heavy drama undertones, you have to have some comic relief, and it doesn't mean stand-up comedy and jokes. It means something that's humorous.
Sarcasm,
or something that makes you smile, something that makes you laugh, something that's heartwarming or funny or silly. It's got to have some sort of comedic pressure valve that lets the viewer off the hook about tension and conflict and character. So if you have a little something comedic, whether it's Uncle what's his name, Sid? No. From Duck Dynasty,
Yep.
Uncle, whatever his name is, Uncle Cy. He's their comic relief. He's always their comic relief. He's always saying silly, goofy, gnarly things that nobody expects. And in Survivor, there's always somebody that's, the goofball, somebody that's the dimwit, or somebody that's the sarcastic, snotty person that everybody loves to hate. So you have to have that comedic element. You've got to have some humor in there somewhere to let that pressure valve off. And then the fourth thing, content. What's it about? It's got to have a reasonably interesting storyline, concept, plot. But of the 4, that one's down on the bottom. First is character, second is conflict, third is
because you can always write the
elements.
content in. Right. Anybody can do
And then
that.
The fourth thing is the content. So whether you're going to talk about, people driving big wheel trucks in mud competitions, or whether you're going to talk about beauty contestants, or whether you're going to talk about
chefs,
whatever it happens to be. If you don't have the other driving elements, the content's not going to matter. It's an interesting process to see how our industry works up close and personal. And one of the ways to learn it is by going to trade events and conferences and trade shows and summits and pitch festivals and things like that.
Which is why you're hardly ever in town anymore.
Well, I have a busy season and I have a slower season. And the busy season really starts right after the holidays. Like January, this will be my second trip this month. I was in New York City for a couple of days with the Association of Film Commissioners International in New York. Came back. I'll have been back 10 days, and then I'm going to the Real Screen Summit in D.C., which is the biggest reality television event, and it's where 3,000 production companies that do nothing but
look for the next big hit.
And networks and cable outlets and distributors and so forth. They're all looking for reality. But then again, I'll come spring, or I'll be going to the Locations Conference in Los Angeles, where we're reaching out specifically to producers and location managers to show off our wares, what our locations look like. I'll be at Produced By, which is a Produced By conference in Los Angeles. They do it on the lot of one of the studios, different one every year, and you're specifically targeting producers so that they understand the budgetary implications. The producer wants to know, what does it cost, and what will you give me back, and what are your incentives, and why should I come to you instead of someone else?
Which brings me back to the Sarasota Film Commission. That's a government entity?
Well,
Is it paid for by government?
No, we are what's considered a public-private organization. We're a nonprofit. We are part of the Economic Development Corporation, which is a contractor for Sarasota County government. So Sarasota County government contracts to the Economic Development Corporation economic development mandates and goals and missions and things they wanted to accomplish. And they are the organization under which our film commission functions. They're our parent. So we are a contractor for government.
Okay.
When I was with the state of Nevada, I was with state government. It was a state film commission headquartered in Las Vegas.
I wondered, I just was curious as to
what
I see what you're like Realize Bradenton.
Exactly.
Okay.
And most government entities nowadays, they do contract with specialist organizations to handle specialized skills. Because why would you need a...
Yeah, how would they even know how to go about putting it together?
They could figure it out, but why should they have to spend taxpayer dollars reinventing a wheel that already exists?
Right.
And why would they... It would be, for example, saying, okay, we want to open a restaurant that specializes in sushi, and we're all from Omaha, and we don't know anything about sushi, so do we just try and figure out how to make sushi, or do we take the restaurant and we hire a sushi chef and we let that sushi chef do it the way it's supposed to be done?
Okay. And what do you think is important about the commission's work that the public should be aware of?
Well, they should be aware of the fact that we drive into the local economy hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in direct spending by projects every year that would not come here otherwise, or if they did come, they might not stay as long or spend as much. So the more we serve them, the better we serve them, the more often they come, the longer they stay, and the more they spend. And it all goes directly into the local economy, directly into the pockets of local vendors, local housing, local car rentals, local restaurants, local hardware stores. Everybody locally gets a piece of that, whether they realize it or not. And it helps develop high-tech, high-skill, high-wage jobs for people that are here. It helps people stay here.
Our industry in the film and writing and production and all that has grown tremendously over the last few years here in the area, hasn't it?
It has. But one of the things we've seen is our best and our brightest, they want to stay here. They want to live here. They want to raise their kids here. They want to be able to go to the beach and watch those sunsets, and they want to be able to play beach volleyball, and they want to be able to go out and go fishing on their boats. But if we can't bring enough work in consistently, they've got to go
to LA
Miami
or Orlando.
They're going to Miami, they're going to Orlando, they're going to Louisiana, they're going to Georgia, they're going to North Carolina, they're going to South Carolina. And that, the heaviest burden falls on the state, just like it does on every state. And the state of Florida has a film commission for the whole state, and they have an incentive program for the whole state that all of us can benefit from. And it has been struggling with funding for that statewide program. So one of the things I do as a local film commission, as a county film commission, is I'm part of a statewide trade organization, and I'm very active with the legislature up in Tallahassee. So not only do I travel for all the business I travel for my film commission, but I also travel to the legislature at least a couple times a year up in Tallahassee. I meet with legislators, I meet with state senators, I meet with state
To
representatives.
help them understand how you help the state.
And to help them understand the necessity of having a strong state film commission with state incentives, with proper funding, so that the state of Florida can compete against the state of North Carolina and the state of Louisiana and the state of Georgia, because it's a ferocious competition out there. And people who look at incentives that don't really understand how it all works, they go, well, why should we have to bribe Hollywood? You know, why should we give bribes to Hollywood, and why should we pay off Hollywood? And
Because they could just keep their sets there with all their multi-million-dollar
Exactly.
deals.
And when you think about it, it's just the nature of the world at large. This has become a global playing field. Everybody wants to get in the game. And the way they get in the game is, do they come with the right equipment? Do they come with the right skills? Do they come with the right tools? Do they come with the right players to get on the field and compete? Because if you don't, for example, if you're going to play in a football game and everybody out there is wearing a helmet and pads and you don't have any, do you think you're going to last? No. If you're going to play in a basketball game and you don't have sneakers and you don't know how to dribble a ball, do you think they're going to let you in the game? No. So we have to be equipped and trained, and we have
and know
to
what
have,
they need.
and we have to have the skills and the equipment and the tools that everybody else has, because if we don't, we're not in the game at all. And that's the way incentives work. Right now, some of it's a little ridiculous. Michigan got a little carried away, and they were giving 42% incentives, and they were so desperate because of their economy to bring in jobs and to bring in projects and so forth. Their 42% incentive worked for them, but they got a landslide. All of a sudden, they were being inundated with projects wanting to shoot there because they wanted the 42% back. And it hit them before they had infrastructure, before they had crew, before they had equipment, before they had, systems to have a locations library. And they had to scramble like mad to put all the mechanisms in place to serve the production, because be careful what you wish for. And as it turned out, Michigan did gangbusters for a few years, but they couldn't sustain that kind of a drain economically. You can't, if somebody comes in and they spend $100 and you give $42 back, is your net of $58 enough
to cover
the people and the expenses and the administration
right.
and the management and the taxes?
Probably not.
Probably not. So they have since pulled back quite a bit, and they too are remodeling what they're doing. And Florida's been consistently smart for a number of years now about having a strong incentive program that is not outrageous. It's not ridiculous.
We also have a lot of actual studios in Florida, don't we? I mean, between Orlando and Miami?
Between everything. Florida at one point was one of the top 3 filming states in the United States. At one point it was all about California, New York, and Florida. Those were the 3 big guns for filming.
California and Florida because of the weather.
Right, and New York because of the assets and the people and everything else. And then incentives came into play, and all of a sudden here's California, New York, and Florida getting their clock cleaned by
Nebraska.
No, but actually it was more of a international pressure at first. It started in Canada, it spread to all the other countries, Ireland. Everybody has incentives now. Other nations have national incentive programs, especially Canada, France, Germany, Italy, places like that. They have a nationwide incentive program. We don't have that in the United States at all. We're one of the few nations that does not have a federal incentive program. One of the few. So all of a sudden, here we have 50 states, and we're all scrambling around to do our own version to try and compete with Ireland and Australia and New Zealand and the UK and Germany and Paris. And, it's crazy that we don't have the kind of federal level playing field that we need. That's another conversation for another day. But,
that's the future.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that the United States will ever do a federal incentive.
Do you think they might need? Do they need to?
Oh, of course they do. They've needed to for 25 years. At one point, we had a Jobs Creation Act on the federal level. It was called the Job Creation Act of 2004, JCA 2004. And it was very interesting because it allowed investment in film and television, and it allowed the investors to take a very, very nice tax break based on the money that they pumped into filming television or movies or so forth. And that was a very good incentive to get content made in the United States, and for people of wealth to say, well, gee, if I put $15 million into making a TV series, when we spend that $15 million in whatever capacity we spend it in, the year that we spend it, I get to take what they spent as ordinary loss on my taxes. And all of a sudden, my tax burden goes way down, and I've still got a vested interest in this TV show, and I've taken ordinary loss on my taxes, and bang, 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 you've got all these great bangs for the buck going on with this, with the Job Creation Act. Well, that only lasted for a couple of years, and then they had to renew it, and then it sunset, and then it expired, and then they brought it back, and oh my gosh, it has been 8-9 years of fiddling around with the Job Creations Act to try to keep at least that federal incentive in play. But right now it's gone. They did some extensions, they did some other things to it. I don't know what will happen with it now. But that's as close as we've gotten on a federal level to having a big
Now,
federal
if somebody
incentive.
wants to check out the TV Me, they don't have to be from this area to compete, correct?
No, they can. It is a USA contest. It's only for permanent residents of the United States, because if we pay to take the grand prize winner either to New York or Los Angeles, depending on which market's better for them, if we're paying for their travel and so forth, we don't have the budget to fly them in from Guatemala or Timbuktu or.
So where do they go to find out about TV Me?
They go to Film Sarasota. I've been thinking on a state level. FilmSarasota.com. And there's a TV Me icon, and they can click on it and find out what the status is. I will say that right now, January of 2014, we have not activated it again yet, because I am in discussions with several prominent organizations that could be sponsors, and if they will step forward and become official sponsors, and we can start giving bigger benefits to the winners. That's what's important. I don't want anyone to waste their time competing in a contest that's not going to benefit them strongly. And I think that
it's not about the monetary prize; it's about the connections that you make.
But it's nice if we can give them monetary prizes too. And we've always given some sort of a money prize, but it's been modest. It's $500 here and there. But what's been great has been the cost that the burden that we shoulder to take them to either Los Angeles or New York and introduce them to powerful people in powerful places. The winner for 2013 was a young woman from upstate New York. And she had a very interesting made-for-television kind of mini-series, fact-based fiction on a girl in the Civil War. So it was it the Civil War or was it the Confederate War? Anyway, it was a very interesting, historically factual, yet fictionalized version of this young woman who pretends to be a boy so she can enroll in the Union Army. And we connected her with a couple of interesting options in New York City. We worked with the History Channel a bit to try and get her looked at. We worked with Hallmark, a few others to try and get them to take a look at it. I don't know if it was the timing. I'm not sure exactly what it was, because the History Channel had just done Hatfield McCoy's, and Spielberg had just done Lincoln. Bonnie and Clyde were in production, and all of these different fact-based but fictionalized, historical kind of things were all in the works, which we thought would be perfect for her. That she could say, look what's hot. Everything like this is hot. Now's the time to do my project. But instead, they were kind of having the complete opposite reaction.
She should have had a vampire in there.
She had a vampire, a werewolf, or I don't know,
shapeshifter or something.
Or some girl named Cat Spit that had a bow and arrow. I don't know.
They needed a warrior princess. It was very nice having you on Culture Coast.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope to talk to you again very soon.
Well, thanks for putting up with my chattiness.
Nightmares. Frightful visions during the night, causing terror and loss of sleep. Daymares. Frightful visions during the day, causing fear and paranoia. Gothmares. Gothic visions that can happen anytime, causing horror and disgust. But sometimes they offer answers. Read Gothmares if you dare. Gothmere is a young adult novel by Al Musitano, available on Amazon and fine bookstores everywhere.